Welcome to the Ground and Pwned podcast, a weekly show for fans of combat sports, gaming, entertainment, and plenty more. I'm Brian Shea, online content director at Game Informer, joined as always by Scott Fontana, the New York Post's MMA reporter. Last episode, we were coming off one of the wildest fight weeks in a long time, as well as a pay-per-view. So this week, the tables have kind of turned, as we essentially got a mini E3 in the middle of September. We will chat about that. You know we'll talk some MMA, and then maybe some other stuff. But first, Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm just itching to get into this gaming stuff, to be perfectly honest, because I was so busy with a lot of fight related work stuff, early part of the week last week when all these announcements were going on with gaming. I need you to update me on what I need to know. I picked out here and there's a couple things that kind of leaked through that especially jumped at me. But yeah, what do we want to talk about here? What should we be talking about from the gaming stuff, man?
So the two big things that happened last week, I would say, are the PlayStation State of Play and the Nintendo Direct. I thought the Nintendo Direct gave me more to be excited about, but the PlayStation State of Play did bring some heavy hitters. So I know you're a PlayStation guy, but you also like Nintendo. It's not like you're
my two consoles are my PS5 and my Switch. So honestly, it's not like I prioritize one or the other. It's just I tend to play my PlayStation more.
So this is Christmas morning for you.
Kind of, yeah. Well, except for the fact that I have nothing in my, under my tree. It's just, it's more like when you get the Christmas catalog, right? Then you find out like, oh wow, this is all the stuff that's a possibility. This is great.
My analogy or metaphor, I don't know. It's very early on a Monday morning for me, so my brain's not quite revved up yet. I'm a sip into my coffee, but the way that I spelled it out on All Things Nintendo last week, we were talking about E3. And I said it's kind of like Christmas Eve, where you get to look and you see all the presents under the tree. But instead of opening all the presents the next morning, you get to open them over the next 6 months to year and a half, Well,
it sounds like a terrible Christmas.
It does.
You're almost making it worse, sir.
But it's kind of like you seeing all the presents under the tree, and then you're like, all right, when do I get to open them? That's kind of what this felt like. And so let's start with let's talk with what you've been playing.
Me, honestly, I just didn't have a whole lot of time this week. I wanted to play. I think I was saying last week I was going to try and play 2K23, check it out because they provided me the code, and I just did not get the chance to do it. I had way too much. So here's what I did. Last week I had 2 interviews on Monday. One with Yoel Romero, who is competing this weekend at Bellator. We'll talk about that a little later. And one with Anderson the Spider Silva. That was a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Because, of course, he's fighting Jake Paul in boxing, which is absurd, but also it's fun. I actually really want to watch this one. This is the first one where I'm like, I kind of want to see what happens. Mostly because I feel more confident in Anderson Silva's ability to win this one than I did about the other two.
I have been hearing a lot of things. The way that the co-main event podcast has been saying it is, this is one of those ones where you need to build a wall around your heart.
That's fair.
Because
that's actually pretty fair.
It's just, there is a high potential for us just to all be extremely sad coming out of this.
There absolutely is. I have no doubt about that. But also, I have watched Anderson Silva box recently, which is one thing none of his other opponents have done.
Yeah.
Jake Paul. And he has looked very good. One of the times was against Tito Ortiz, who is not a boxer, obviously. But the other was against former boxing champion and son of a legend, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Mm-hmm. And he won this fight. I mean, this was ridiculous. And he was still able to, he wasn't just, winning as a boxer. He was still being Anderson Silva sometimes. He was giving you all the show, right?
Well,
and it was wild to see him do this against a boxer in his first boxing match in 15, 16 years. So now he's actually a little more in it, and he's going against someone with much less experience. I do feel pretty good about that one. We could talk about that next month more, of course, but
yeah.
To your point about what the CMA guys are saying, I understand that, and it would actually be pretty heartbreaking for it to go that way. But I feel much more confident about it than I did about any of the other ones. But the other two things that I did last week work-wise, well, first off, it was my wedding anniversary last week. So
hey, congratulations.
Thank you. But also I went out to Long Island to interview Jillian DeCourcy, who is challenging for Invicta's atomweight title. She's Queens. She's from Queens. She trains on Long Island, lives on Long Island now. So I was out there for that. And I also talked to Corey Sandhagen, who, of course, competed over the weekend as well, which we will talk about soon. So yeah,
You had
super
a lot on
busy
your
week
plate
for me.
So
I was
did you
also
have any
coaching.
time for gaming?
Did I even tell you that I'm coaching youth soccer?
You did.
Yeah. We had our first practice Wednesday night after I drove to Long Island and back on like 4 hours of sleep. So I'm exhausted. I think we've got room to grow, but honestly, I think everybody's going to have a fun year, and that's what I'm all about. So that's really what I take away from it. And we had a game over the weekend. That was also an experience that was fun, and we don't keep score, so don't worry about the score. But we're gonna have a really fun year. But yeah, so I was super busy. No time for gaming. What were you playing?
I played a little bit of Madden 23. I'm slowly bringing my face of the franchise guy together, leveling him up. I think he's at like a 78 right now. He's the quarterback for the Vikings, oddly enough. Like I made a quarterback.
Okay. Local. Keeping it local for you.
They were the ones that offered me the best deal, like among the best deal. I think there was one other team that was like, yeah, we need a quarterback. And I'm like, I'm not playing for you. I forget who it was.
How do you get there? Is because I haven't played that mode yet. Is it where you like you can go in the free agent market or you drafted?
It is free agency. Like you're like a veteran quarterback, like not like an old guy, but like you have like a couple years of experience. Been in the league a few years. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's like your rookie contract is over. So now you're like looking for a different team. So like they got rid of the college and high school experience, and now you're just like kind of dumped into the mode, which I like because the college and high school stuff always took so much time. And
it
now
takes time, and it's like you've already done it every game. It's like, all right, maybe we don't need to do it every year.
I think they've realized that, and I think it's to their benefit because it dumps you into the stuff that you want to get to. Like, yeah, I like the fact that like I wouldn't mind if they gave you the option to do the high school and college stuff.
Sure.
Like I could
that's
also
a lot of work to leave that in and not do it.
Exactly. Like I would like this, like the skip option, but also if it's like already in there, like just like kind of copy paste the stuff from before, because I do like.
I guess in theory that makes sense.
I do like it, but I also like I've done it so many years now because that's my go-to mode, right? Is like the face of the franchise, the single player career mode, where it's like you're just controlling like the quarterback of your team or whatever other position. I think there's 6 positions you can choose from. Okay. I'm always a quarterback because like that's the one that makes the most sense. You have the most say over how every offensive play goes.
I will occasionally be a running back.
Okay.
You know, because then all I have to worry about is when I get the ball, like I'm kind of either just going out. Well, first off, I could obviously go out for a route, but typically, you're just worried about running, and I throw a lot of interceptions when I play Madden.
I do too.
So I want to say when I run, I don't throw as many interceptions because I'm not throwing.
Dude, I was having the game of my life last night in Face of the Franchise, and we took it to overtime. I think it wasn't the Dolphins. It was who was it? I don't know because it's the Vikings. I don't know their schedule. But I was playing someone last night and took it to overtime, and I was driving down the field. They received the ball, so they got a field goal. So I had to score at least a field goal. And I was driving down the field, and I got like to like their 30-yard line. So I was getting pretty close.
Yeah, you could have kicked from there, really.
And I threw a pick.
Yeah.
After having just an incredible game, and then interception, and it was over.
Well, I feel like, especially when I used to play Madden a lot more, I really don't play much anymore. So that's kind of part of it. But when I used to play, you remember how, like, if you threw over the middle, anywhere within like a good 30 feet of the linebacker, they were going to jump or dive and get the interception, which made absolutely no sense for anybody who actually watches football. Like, the middle linebacker interception ability was always like way off.
They've tuned it a lot. Like, it used to be like that you could also throw like undefendable kind of lob passes to the corner of any
that was
route.
A broken mechanic too.
So they've patched a lot of it. It'd also be like you could scramble out to the right, and you'd be able, if you had any amount of speed on your quarterback, you'd be able to just break a run almost every single time.
Mm-hmm.
The defensive line, like kind of QB pursuing AI, is a lot smarter now too. Like, where even with Lamar Jackson, I'm having a hard time getting out and away from the line. So it's like they've fine-tuned a lot of the things. I think this year was more of a kind of, hey, let's not add so much in way of features and really just kind of refine the core mechanics, which I think this franchise needed.
Yeah, I think it definitely needed. It's probably long overdue. But the tough thing is, obviously, it's like I understand they're on a clock, right? They're on a clock in a way that few developers could really honestly relate to, right? It's just not the way it works in most other games. Like,
yeah, like even the annualized franchises are done by multiple studios. Like
right,
Call of
they'll
Duty,
shop it around.
Call of Duty has Infinity Ward, it has Treyarch, it has Sledgehammer.
Exactly.
Ubisoft has like 5 different studios working on Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. So yeah, they're in obviously a very unique situation. I know they're not called EA Tiburon anymore, but to me, they're always EA Tiburon.
I think the team is called EA Tiburon. The office is just EA Orlando now.
Oh, okay. Well, good. They're still EA Tiburon to me anyway. Because I remember when it was just Tiburon. Remember in the 90s when we used to play on Super Nintendo and just to have that shark logo that would come up there.
I mean, it was so confusing because I did go down to EA Orlando for the Madden reveal this year. And I was down there and they kept referring to it as EA Orlando. And then when I was writing it, I was asking like, hey, like, is this EA Orlando or EA Tiburon? Because everybody just kept saying Orlando. And then they looked into it because like even PR didn't know 100%. And they looked into it. They're like, okay, well, the team is EA Tiburon. So like the developer is EA Tiburon, but they work within the EA Orlando offices.
Why did they do that?
I don't know. I think it's just because they're uniforming it. Because it used to be like EA Canada. And I think it's EA Vancouver now, but like they're just naming all the studios after the city that they're in, I think.
It's so bland though. Like, God.
Yeah,
anyway,
I agree. But I'm also playing a game called Metal Hellsinger, which did you ever play Doom 2016?
Yeah, like the refresh
reboot,
of the Doom franchise. Yeah. I played that. I actually, I'm not a Doom guy, but I actually really like that game.
So think that. Only you get rewarded for attacking to the beat of the music.
Oh, I kind of remember you telling me a little bit.
Dude,
about
this game rules.
On our show.
It is so much fun. They got like big name metal artists to contribute to the soundtrack with like original songs and everything. Okay. And the way it works is like, so you know, it really is the Doom blueprint though. Like you're going through hell, you're fighting demons, you're doing these like kind of over the top boss battles. And you're just moving through the environment super fast. You're pretty mobile. And you're like, there's like a little reticule that like kind of like, there's like arrows that come. And so you know exactly when the beat is, but you can hear the song. But it starts out like you get a multiplier based on how like on the beat you are and how many kills you're getting in a row. And what it does is as that multiplier rises, the music kicks in more. So it starts off at just like maybe like a simple drum beat and a bass. And then like after you get up to like a 4 times multiplier, maybe the guitar will kick in, and then you get up to an 8, the drums will pick up a little bit more. And then you get to 16 multiplier and the vocals kick in. It's like, oh man, like you're really like flowing, you're feeling it. Like at first I'm like so offbeat, but once you get into like the flow of the song and like kind of really start feeling the rhythm, like it's almost impossible not to like bob your head a little bit while you're playing. And like then the vocals kick in right as you're starting to feel it. Like they timed it perfectly where like, all right, you're finally like getting the rhythm down. You're feeling it like kind of start flowing through you. And then the vocals kick in and it just really like hammers home that like, all right, you are kind of entering that flow state, but you're also like just rampaging through these demons and it feels so good. It's really well designed. I'm only a few levels in right now. I think there's like, I don't know, there's I think like 10 levels, but like I'm only a few levels deep.
Yeah, I can't imagine it's a very long, I mean, in Doom itself, obviously it's you're talking about it. You almost make it sound like a Doom clone, right? To borrow the old phrase, right? But yeah, those aren't long games. Like you can't play that for 30 hours.
Yeah. So I don't anticipate it to be a super long game, but I think it's skyrocketing up my list of favorite games this year.
And I know you're a music guy too, so I feel like this has like extra appeal to somebody like yourself.
But like I'm not like I like metal, like more like classic metal, like you know, like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, like older Metallica.
Okay.
Like this is like screaming like death metal. Like the least screaming you'll get is probably with like Serj Tankian, who is the singer of System of a Down.
Okay.
And what's her Alyssa Glues, I think is her name, but like she has like but the person that she's singing with, I believe, has a lot of screaming in there as well. Sure. So it's a very like kind of like heavy metal soundtrack, which isn't really my genre, but like it works well in the context of battling through hell and just cutting demons in half and blowing them away with a shotgun. You know, it fits nicely. Like I wouldn't mind having a game like this with like more like rock sensibilities than like metal, but like it's an awesome game, and like I said, it's one of my favorite games of the year so far.
Fascinating. Yeah, I mean that's cool. That's cool. I know you've probably got to still catch up on some games for the year, right? Because as you guys get to the end of the year, you need to know make your end of the year lists, all that kind of thing, right?
Here's my end of the year list so far.
Okay.
Let's
just give top five. Top five.
That's what I was about to say. Top 5.
There you go. Keep it that.
We'll start with 5. I'll say 5 is Metal Hellsinger.
Okay. All right.
4, Cult of the Lamb. 3, Splatoon 3. 2, Shredder's Revenge. And 1, Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Okay. So
that's going into the holiday season, right?
We have 3 games that have come out, I think, in like the last month or so. And then one that came out, late summer in Turtles. And then Arceus was way back in like what, February?
January,
okay.
Yeah, but like it's going to be a busy holiday season, so there's going to be a lot of shuffling in that list, I have a feeling. But again, that's all subject to change because I've only a few levels deep in Metal Hellsinger. Maybe I get to the end and I'm like, wow, I loved that. That's not my number 2.
Or maybe it ends terribly and you're like, ugh.
That's happened before.
Mm-hmm.
That has happened before. So that's what I've been playing. I'm more excited to talk about what we're going to be playing in the next few months.
Tell me about what's going on. Let's start with State of Play.
Okay, that was less dense. I was going to start with Direct because that stuff is more imminent, I would say, because it's like this winter. But let's start with State of Play just because there's not as much like super important stuff to talk about. But there were some big games. Let's start with what they started with. Tekken 8 officially revealed.
I did see that. I saw the video for that. Tekken 8
it looks
really great. Yeah, that looks fantastic.
Again, I'm not a big like 3D fighting game guy anymore. I used to be like back in like the early 2000s, back when like that was all there was.
Yeah,
I love 2D fighting games, but like 3D fighting games are. I feel like there's some that do it really well. Tekken is one of the ones that does it really well. Soul Calibur's the other one that I really like. I always
like Soul Calibur in like college, especially. I was playing that a lot in college.
But yeah, Tekken 8 looks great. I'm excited for that. I want to check it out. The graphics look insane. You can tell they're leveraging the power of the new systems if what they showed was on like PS5.
Sure.
But yeah.
And I know a lot of fighters especially really love Tekken. It's like a big inspiration for a lot of people. Yuri Prohaska, I know, has cited it. I know Mighty Mouse Johnson really loves Tekken.
Well, because it's so combo focused. So like it really plays on probably their natural instincts that they've learned over the course of their decades of training of just stringing together attacks and
the other thing of that is it's actually Tekken, I feel like of all the fighters is very much like a heightened version of what we have in mixed martial arts right now. Like obviously there are a lot of things that happen in a Tekken fight that would not happen in real life unless Mighty Mouse Johnson wants to prove us wrong, which if anyone's going to, it is him. Right?
I mean, you didn't see Corey Sandhagen turn into a giant demon and grow wings and shoot a laser out of his forehead?
Dude, I mean, he's not there yet. Like he's still rounding out his game.
I mean, if he can really round out that part of his game, I think he's going to be a true threat to the title picture at bantamweight. It would be
hard to stop him at that point. It's really kind of like there's a lot of like grapple and that kind of thing and like quick kicks. I see Tekken as like the closest analog to modern MMA that we have in like, let's say, a AAA fighting game.
Yeah, and also you can fight a bear like Khabib did.
Which is, again, very grounded in reality, like we just said.
I'm saying there's footage of one of the most dominant champions the UFC's ever seen wrestling a bear.
As a child.
Yeah.
As a child. So we need to stress this wasn't like when he was fighting in the UFC. This was when he was 10 years old.
He got those double leg takedowns pretty early.
Yeah, absolutely ludicrous. Can you imagine just how many children in Dagestan like could have grown up and been better than Khabib, but the bear got them?
The bear killed them.
I mean, I hope not. I hope this is not actually a scenario that happened. But shoot, is he the only guy in Dagestan who actually wrestled a bear? He can't be the only. Humankind is not 1-0 against bears in Dagestan. It just can't be.
I mean, that's
unfortunately.
That has to be a thing that like that's not just a thing that Khabib's family, I'm assuming it was his father, that was just like, hey, like
Abdul Manap,
yeah, Abdul Manap. I'm sure he wasn't the one that was like, hey, let's go wrestle a bear. I'm sure somebody was like, hey, like this kid wrestled a bear, and my kid can do that too.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe he was. Maybe he's an innovator. He obviously was the kind of the godfather of martial arts and especially mixed martial arts in Dagestan. He did a lot to kind of, from what I understand anyway, is over there it was a lot of people who were either like getting into like fighting and maybe like, or not fighting, but like actual like warlike fighting and getting themselves into maybe situations that were very dangerous, or they went into martial arts to kind of give them something a little more focused. That was my understanding of the situation over there as he was growing up. So yeah, he did. It sounds like he did some really great things over there especially with the youth and giving them direction and giving them something positive, right?
Well, that's good. Speaking of going into war fighting or going into brawling,
this is quite a segue.
Another game at the State of Play, Like a Dragon Ishin, which is from RGG Studios, Ryoga Godoko, which is the Yakuza developer.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I saw some people talking about Yakuza, and I didn't really understand why. I guess
so. It sounds like that franchise is getting rebranded to Like a Dragon.
Okay.
Because all the projects, there were like 3 projects revealed, and they all had Like a Dragon in the title instead of Yakuza.
I wonder if the thinking is maybe it's easier to market it over here.
Probably, but also, the last one was
maybe
called
even maybe in Japan too. I don't know.
The other one was I think it's been called Like a Dragon for a while over there.
Okay,
I want to say, but like a Dragon Ishin was the new one that was announced, and it is a spin-off of the Yakuza series, and it takes us back to I think the 1800s, and you are a samurai. And you are just kind of like on this quest for vengeance after you get into so it's like basically Samurai Yakuza, which sounds incredible. And it looks like a lot of fun too. It looks like a lot of fun. They showed some gameplay footage, and yeah, it just looks like all kinds of bananas. It's a game that came out several years ago in Japan, and they're remaking it or remastering it or something for the US. It's the first time it's coming to the US, but it looks really great. Let's see.
Before we go, I wanted to ask about Tekken. Do they have like a release window or anything like that? Anything they're targeting?
God, I don't think they do.
They didn't mention anything because I saw the video. I didn't remember them mentioning anything about a date in the video, but just curious if that's coming down the pipe next year or maybe in a couple of years.
It does not look to have a release date.
So I'm gonna guess bare minimum 2024.
Let's see.
I mean that one.
It's entirely possible. I mean, I remember Tekken 7 took a long time to come out.
Yeah, I do remember that one too, having some issues.
Yeah,
with
no release date yet.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna. This has nothing to do with official, but this is me guessing. I'm gonna say July 2024. Just kind of pulling a number out there.
I'm gonna say not July, but I think 2024 is a good guess.
You're right. That's true. Let's say September.
That was my guess. Look, we're on the same wavelength.
All right, it's gonna be September 24. Mark your calendar. Say Scott told you. Based on nothing except his guess.
Well, that's good, yeah. That's all you need, right? Based on nothing.
What else we got?
Rise of the Ronin, another kind of like samurai-esque game, and it is a open world action RPG from Team Ninja.
Okay.
And it is absolutely gorgeous. It looks like a combination of Ghost of Tsushima and Elden Ring, I would say.
Interesting.
It is absolutely.
What type of game is it then? It's
open world action RPG. I'm going to throw this in the chat here. You look at these screenshots. You tell me this game isn't absolutely gorgeous.
What are we saying here? Oh, this looks ugly. This is super ugly. No, man, this is terrific. I mean, I would hit play on the video, but yeah, look at I love the the way they do kind of the cherry blossoms over there, like in Ghost of Tsushima. It looked fantastic. Here you can see it as well in one of these screenshots I'm looking at. There's just so much artistry that I feel like people like to do when they go back to this period, right?
They really take advantage of it. It's beautiful.
I see some white colonist in here smoking a cigar.
Yes,
I'm sure he's the bad guy. He should be.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then Scott, the final one. I'm going to send you this link here because I think you need to react to this in real time.
All right.
We've got a God of War Ragnarok trailer.
What is this game? I don't know this game. I actually heard about this video.
They faked us out.
Can I tell you, I actually avoided this video purposefully.
Okay. Well, you don't need to watch it. But
No, I'm not going to watch it, and that's okay. Like, I'm super pumped that it's there, but I feel like at this point, I'm like already in, so I'm just gonna avoid it. You know what I mean?
They faked us out so hard. They were like, "Hey, we've got one more thing to share with you," and they did the traditional one more thing. Oh
yeah. Oh, by the way.
And it was a controller for God of War. We were like, "Are you kidding me?" Like you can see it in that article I just sent you. There's a picture of it's a beautiful controller. Like if you just scroll to like the top of the article, there is there's a gallery of the controller, and it's a
Yeah,
really
I see
pretty controller. It's blue
Yeah,
and white.
it's lovely.
And they were like, because they showed like a little bit of God of War footage, and then it was like a controller, and it's just like, oh my god, that's what everybody was like, that's what they're ending with, and then they're like, oh, and then here's a new trailer for God of War, and we're like, hell yeah. And it looks really sick. I'm not going to say a whole lot because I know you're trying to avoid it, but there were some characters I've wanted to see for a while. There are some battles that look really awesome. There's some stuff that I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Yeah, it is looking very exciting. I cannot wait to play this game.
These screenshots are fantastic. I'm looking at those. That one I don't mind looking at right now.
Okay. Yeah,
This
there's
was a recent decision, by the way, for me to be like, no, don't watch anymore. Because like I once they called it a story trailer, I like immediately decided maybe I'll just wait. Because if it was gameplay, I'd probably watch it.
There's a GIF that is going around about one of these screenshots that is maybe one of the most badass GIFs I've seen that somebody took from this trailer.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh my god, like they're doing the thing with this thing. That's all. I'm not going to spoil it for you.
Doing the thing with this thing. I believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the
Things
state
are
of
gonna be
play.
thinking.
I mean, obviously God of War is your most interested one, but
Easily.
of those three other ones that we talked about, which ones are interesting you?
Honestly, probably Rise of the Ronin. That one sounds fascinating to me. I really love that period. I love games that are set in that space. So yeah, that's kind of where I would go. Then I think probably I'll put Tekken there because I do like Tekken. It's not like for me. I don't know what your favorite fighting franchise is, but for me, it is Street Fighter.
Yeah, Street Fighter. I
just have a deep connection to it from my childhood. So like, even though I'm not very good at it, like I'm let's say like possibly serviceable with like your group of friends, right?
Yeah, same here.
Like that's where I'm at. But I really do still enjoy the game, even though it really is like that's like I feel like Street Fighter is actually like a fighter's fighting game. Like the people who really competitive play, that one makes even more sense than like Mortal Kombat. I feel like
Mortal Kombat and Street
has
Fighter
more mass appeal to like the way people play.
Yeah, I would say it's 1A and 1B for me is Street Fighter, then Mortal Kombat. Like those are just two franchises I adore, and I could not. I mean, my history with both of them is almost equally as long, right? Like I got into Street Fighter through Street Fighter 2 in the arcades, then I got it on SNES. Same deal for Mortal Kombat. Got into it in the arcades. My parents wouldn't let me own a copy, so I bought it on Game Gear because it was portable and it didn't have blood. And then I turned on the blood code and got in trouble. And I told Ed Boon that story, and he thought he was
That's
like,
right.
"Oh,
You mentioned that one before.
Tell your parents I'm sorry."
Yeah. I remember that. So, which of those three are you most interested in?
Oh man, probably Rise of the Ronin.
Okay,
that game looks so good. Like I remember, like it was like, oh, okay, it's another one of these, like a kind of open world samurai, like that's gonna because Team Ninja also does Neo, which is like almost like a Dark Souls like type of open world ninja game, right?
That's a game I still kind of want to go back and play. Like I played like a good like hour-ish about that, and then I was into it, and then I moved on. I just didn't go back.
But I saw that, and I was like, oh, it's just another game like that. And then I watched the trailer, and I'm like, wow, this looks incredible. I'm all in on that game. I'm excited for that. There's also another game that I haven't checked out yet, but I believe it's also from Team Ninja. It is. It's called Wolong Fallen Dynasty.
Oh, this one's in China, right?
Yeah, and it is Team Ninja as well, but they just put out a demo on PlayStation and Xbox. You can download it right now to check it out. I downloaded it, but I didn't get a chance to play it because I was sat down to play it, and I was like, maybe I'll play Metal Hellsinger or Madden instead, and I did end up playing both of those. But
I have a less busy week this week. Maybe I will check it out.
I want to check it out, so maybe we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah.
Hands-on impressions, baby.
That works. Hey,
but
I like it.
Nintendo Direct, Scott. I'm all about this. I love me some PlayStation. I love me some Xbox. But Nintendo is kind of my realm here. And
it is. It's a little bit of a specialty of yours.
We're going to jump into... I mean, there's a lot that they covered. We're not going to talk about all of it. But we'll jump into the big one right here, right off the bat. I'm not going to bury the lead. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel has a name.
What is the name again? I saw it, but I forgot.
The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
But can I just say, there's something about Zelda, especially lately, where they really just love, the name has to be something of the something.
Well, I think this one has some symmetry with Breath of the Wild, because it's a sequel So Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. Somebody was, I think it was my coworker Wesley LeBlanc, who I had on All Things Nintendo, was talking about like there's like a weird like kind of like parallel where like, you know, Kingdom and Wild are two opposing things. Breath can represent wind, tear can represent rain, something like that. I don't know. We've seen raindrops in the trailers, so
I would like someone to make a. Remember they used to have like those whatever generators, like name generators of things on the internet back when it was more in the early days. We were just having like goofy fun on there.
Yeah,
I want a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel name generator where it's like
that's a
noun
good
of the
idea.
Noun. Or like verb of the noun, or whatever that is.
Spaghetti of the plate.
Yeah, exactly. I want that kind of thing. Yeah,
takes place in Italy
with Mario.
Yeah,
he's gonna come over
crossover. But yeah, that game looks really good. We got a release date. It's coming out in May.
You know, I know they're saying May. I guess for me, I'm still like in that like allegedly. This is far off.
This is the first time they've announced like an actual date for it. Though we had holiday 2022 was the closest we've had to like an actual date. Mm-hmm. This is like they gave us what May 12th, I think is like the release date.
Okay.
So we have actually like a date, like a solid date. Yep, May 12th.
I'm going to be contrarian and say it's coming out in July.
Everything's coming out in July.
I know.
Well, that's July 2024. You said for Tekken, so 2023.
Yeah. This one, I'm going to say July. I'm going to say it's going to get pushed just a little bit because they want to fine tune it, make sure it's the best.
You know what's coming sooner than that though? The game that opened the Nintendo Direct. Fire Emblem Engage. Are you a Fire Emblem fan?
I'm not a Fire Emblem guy. I've actually never played.
Okay, so it's just terrific turn-based tactics. I've played a little bit of a few of them. I've never sunk like a significant amount of time, but the combat and the gameplay. If you like turn-based tactics, like Mario Rabbids, like Mario Rabbids, yeah.
Okay.
Mario Rabbids
and that kind of deal.
Yeah, XCOM, Mario Rabbids. I mean, XCOM is kind of on par with this in terms of like the tactical part. But yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics is another one that heavily inspires this. But like Mario Rabbids is like it most simplified down, right? This is like a little bit more intricate, but it's still very, very good. People love it. It's coming out January 20th. They just announced this past week, and it's coming out.
I'll buy that soon. It's coming out January 20th. We're that close.
You know what game we don't have a release date for?
What's that?
Pikmin 4. They announced Pikmin 4. First Pikmin game in a decade.
Game. I don't even know what that... Like, I've seen Pikmin, but I don't know what it actually is.
You run around, you gather little Pikmin, and then you use them to do your bidding.
Oh,
it's a cute little adventure.
Yeah, a cute little slavery adventure.
They're helpers. They're helpers.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Do you play Octopath Traveler?
I played a little bit of it. Can I tell you, I've been waiting like for literally like 4 years now for it to actually go on like a real good sale. So
it's on Game Pass. I know you don't have Xbox.
I'm on Game Pass right now, but I wanted it for my Switch, right? Because it hit Switch first, and I played a little bit on. I guess they had a demo of that too, so I was playing it that way. I'm like, man, this thing doesn't go on sale. I can't believe it. It's not a first party Nintendo game. I would have thought by now it would have been $20 at some point. It never was.
Let's take a look at what it is now, because I feel like now would be the time to discount it, right?
Yeah, you'd think.
Because there's Octopath Traveler 2. Octopath Traveler 2 was announced.
Yes, exactly.
But that is coming out in February, I believe.
Okay.
So like February 24th is when that comes out. And man, they're just piling on the games that are coming out this year. Another Square Enix game that is coming out is Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line. Did you ever play the Theater Rhythm games?
I've never heard of it. No, I don't know.
It is a music game that think like kind of like Guitar Hero style, but you're using your controller. On 3DS, you use the touch screen. The eShop page does not want to load for me for whatever reason, but for
that's all right.
Octopath, we'll come back to it.
We'll find that later.
Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line lets you play through scenes from like different Final Fantasy games, but through that, like the scene plays out in the background. You are just kind of playing the music, like so things are coming down. There's 4 lanes, and you're hitting the notes as they come down. Almost 400 songs at launch, which is so wild. And then there's going to be a season pass that adds 27 additional songs, and then if you want, there's additional DLC coming after that is 90 additional songs from other series from Square Enix. So there's going to be songs from Saga, from Nier, from Octopath Traveler, from Live Alive, and others. So it's like there's going to be like 500 and something songs, 530 songs when this is all said and done, which is wild. And it's just
that is a gigantic set, yeah.
And, you know, music from the Final Fantasy series is so beloved that like it's a perfect genre for this franchise. Looking at, there's one that I want to talk about, but I want to save it until the end because it's going to break out into a bigger conversation. You had a Wii back in the day, right?
I actually am looking at my Wii right now. I can see it.
Okay, so did you ever play Kirby's Return to Dreamland?
No, I didn't.
So it was so we got 2 Kirby games on the Wii, I believe. We got Kirby Epic Yarn, which was kind of like a cutesy, but like very innovative. It's more of a simple platformer.
I think cutesy is kind of part and parcel with Mr. Kirby there.
But this was like literally like a yarn aesthetic.
Oh,
right?
Okay, yeah, I understand.
And then Kirby's Return to Dreamland was kind of like a throwback to like the old school Kirby games where it was like, all right, this is just like more of like a platform, like a 2D platformer for the most part. And, there's a lot of like the conventions that you've come to expect from Kirby. It's more of a traditional Kirby game. And it was really good, but I feel like it never really got its dues. It reviewed very well, but I don't think it sold super well. Mm-hmm. And they are bringing it back. It's called Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, and it's coming out same day as Octopath Traveler 2.
Okay.
Which, by the way, the Switch eShop is completely borked right now. It is not loading.
Yeah, I loaded it up and said it's going to maintenance.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
See, it was just loading forever for me. All right, let's skip a few things. It Takes Two is coming to Switch, which was Game Awards Game of the Year last year.
I still hope you and I can find a way to play that game.
Yeah, I would like it. Tunic is coming to Switch, which
you've spoken about before.
Very good.
Because you loved
Zelda-like,
and now you're playing Tunic.
Yeah, One Nick. Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope got a new trailer. I'm just kind of scrolling through these quick hits right here. Sifu is coming to Switch. I've spoken very highly about that game.
Okay, yeah.
But it's already on PlayStation. Let's see. Okay, so first Splatfest is announced for next weekend. On Splatoon, that's like the in-game events. They usually happen.
Right, you were talking about the in-game events.
Yeah, they're super fun. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's third wave of DLC. Did you ever play the DS Mario Kart?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so there's one level from the DS and then one level from Mario Kart Tour, which is the mobile version. But those courses are really good, despite like how the game itself is kind of a mobile game through and through.
Right.
The tracks on the mobile version of Mario Kart Tour are amazing.
Yeah. So my Mario Kart experience is more obviously the new one, right? But Super Mario Kart, the one for Super Nintendo, the original, the originator, and then the N64 one. That was the one I probably played the most before 8 Deluxe. After that, it's like I'd done a race here or there on some of the new ones, but largely moved away from it, right? So I don't have as much attachment to like the other console games.
So here's the last thing we'll talk about on this Nintendo Direct piece of this, and then we'll branch into a separate thing here.
I know what you're talking about.
So first of all, let's set the table here. Nintendo started a thing. They're like, hey, we have an update to the Nintendo Switch Online Switch or N64 catalog.
Right.
And they listed off all these games in 2022. So the remainder of the year, we're going to get 3 more games for Nintendo 64 on Switch Online. We're getting Pilot Wings 64. We're getting Mario Party. We're getting Mario Party 2. That's before the end of 2022. Those are the 3 games that are coming to Switch Online N64 catalog. Then they're like, and then further down the road in 2023, here's what you'll be getting. They said Mario Party 3. So we got 3 the Mario Party N64 trilogies coming. Pokemon Stadium. Pokemon Stadium 2.
Cool.
Yeah, so both Pokemon Stadium games, 1 and 2. 1080 snowboarding.
Hey, before we even get into the one that you're building up to, for the Pokemon Stadium, like how does that work? Because
it doesn't. You can't transfer.
Well, what the heck?
I know. That I was very disappointed by that.
That's useless. All right, whatever.
And then so 1080 snowboarding, which I don't know if you have any affection for that game.
I didn't play it much, but of course, I grew up in that area. I remember it.
That game ruled. Excite Bike 64.
Didn't play it. I played the original Excite Bike.
And this was when they did one more thing within the segment. Because they were like, yeah, that's all that's coming to Switch. Oh, but there is one more.
Oh, by the way.
And then it cut to black, and you heard da 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 da. And I was like, oh man. And then it was GoldenEye 007 is coming to Switch.
Which I can't believe. Like, I'm so stunned. And I probably
We've
have
talked
questions
about the
that
intricacies of this.
Maybe you can help me out with this too, because I don't understand how they're able to get all of the licensing done for this one. Because it's a license for a game from a movie that came out 27 years ago now? 27 years,
something like that.
Yeah, in 1995. The game came out like a year or two later, and Pierce Brosnan was the Bond in it, with a couple other actors whose name, image, likeness were used in there. And like, how are they able to get that back? Like, are they fudging it? Is he? I mean,
it's probably like MGM or whoever the owner is now. They probably have some sort of in perpetuity license for anything related to the GoldenEye franchise. Like,
sure, okay.
So say they want to do a reissue of the movie. Like, of course they're going to be able to use Pierce Brosnan's likeness in the marketing. So I'm assuming there's some sort of clause in there, but it's getting the movie or the movie studio on board with it too, which they seem to be. But here's the thing. GoldenEye 007 on Switch. It is loyal to the original release, and you can play online multiplayer.
Yeah, like when I heard this, I was through the roof. I was like, who do I text? Which of my friends do I text to make sure that we all play Switch at the same time so that we can play multiplayer online, right? This was where like I was so pumped, because I was very excited to see it was coming back, but then to hear that I could actually play it with them without being in the room with them, I'm like, no way. That's insane.
Wait a second. I'm looking at our text chain right here. I did not get a text from you saying, like, let's make sure we can play.
I actually texted nobody, is the thing. I kind of overloaded. Mind you, I don't remember which day of the week this was, but I was so busy. So, like, I kind of just short-circuited and didn't text anybody. So Don't take it personal.
So we're getting all that, right? We're getting the full GoldenEye experience with online multiplayer through Switch Online.
And I will add that we are going to play together.
Then Rare, simultaneous to them, because remember, Rare is owned by Microsoft,
right?
They of
course released the original.
They used to work very closely with Nintendo. They put out Donkey Kong Country, the original trilogy. They put out Banjo-Kazooie. They put out GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, all these beloved SNES and N64 games.
It was to the point that, like, when I was a kid, I just assumed they were like part of Nintendo.
Yeah,
like I knew they were Rare, but I assumed Rare was part of Nintendo.
And then shortly after Perfect Dark, I believe, Microsoft acquired them, and their most recent projects have been like Sea of Thieves. They did a Perfect Dark game. They've done a Banjo-Kazooie game for Xbox, but Perfect Dark 0 was awful. Banjo-Kazooie.
I love Perfect Dark Original, so like it kind of broke my heart to hear that. So
Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts it was fun, but it was like a very different game from like what people wanted from Banjo-Kazooie. But like they announced at the exact same time that Nintendo revealed this on their Direct, GoldenEye 007 is coming to Xbox through Game Pass and Rare Replay. So if you own Rare Replay, which is like their vintage collection of games, GoldenEye, it's basically almost every game they've worked on that is not owned by Nintendo. So like Banjo-Kazooie's in that, because while that was an N64 exclusive, Rare maintained, or they held on to the IP when they were purchased. Donkey Kong was owned by Nintendo, so like they can't be like, oh well, Donkey Kong Country is now on Xbox. But like Viva Pinata, that was Rare. They're able to put that in the Rare Replay. So if you buy Rare Replay, I think right now it's 27 games, and GoldenEye is going to join that for free. If anybody owns Rare Replay, it is coming for free at the exact same time that it is coming to Switch Online. Like they're going to time it perfectly. But here's the thing. I'll get the bad news out of the way first. The Xbox version, no online multiplayer.
Boo!
But I think it's the definitive way to play this game if they pull it off correctly. So Rare is making it, and it's going to be 4K visuals. It's going to be, and it is like the classic experience. You're getting the campaign, you're getting the multiplayer. It's just only local multiplayer so far. I mean, maybe they're going to pull it back and be like, okay, people were upset, we're going to do all. Maybe it's subject to change always.
They really should add that.
But I have a feeling it's a deal that they struck with Nintendo to get it on there. But so that, I mean, how else would they have coordinated this so perfectly to get like, all right.
Well, everybody knew what was happening. I'm sure that they had to be aware of it, right?
So 4K visuals, 16:9 resolution. So it's going to be kind of like wider screen. And dual analog stick controls.
Okay, that is absolutely the most exciting part of it.
That makes me want to be like, okay, that's where I'm playing this in 2023.
Yeah, because I wonder how the controls are actually going to. Because I haven't played any of the N64 games on Switch yet, so I don't know how the controls tend to translate.
They don't translate very well. So the left stick is like the one stick on the N64 controller, and the right stick is typically mapped as the C buttons.
Okay.
On the N64 controller, if you remember the 4 C buttons, the yellow arrows,
which were actually utilized in GoldenEye. Like you had to, if you wanted to strafe, you had to use left and right C.
Yeah. So I am thinking that Xbox is going to be the best way to play it. But I think that there was some sort of deal where it's like, all right, we want to put this game on, and it's going to be on Game Pass too. So if you're a Game Pass subscriber, it's going to be playable day one.
And I've been thinking about doing it too.
You have been. And I don't know if it's coming to PC. I would imagine it would, because almost every Xbox first-party title, which I guess GoldenEye is technically going to be a first-party Xbox title, which is wild to think about. They come to, Rare Replay is on PC. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think Rare Replay is on PC. Let me dial that back here.
I wish that Nintendo would get a little smarter about the way that just the way you're describing it with ability to like remap and that kind of thing. They should allow you to do a little bit more stuff with controls like that, especially because they've gone in and they've edited again. Like you're adding online multiplayer. You're modifying the game in some way to get that. It's
online multiplayer in the sense that Mario Kart 64 has online multiplayer on Switch, where it's almost like not a screen share, but like it's not like there's like a lobby or anything that they've modified. It's just like you guys enter the same session.
It's kind of like SharePlay on PlayStation. Yeah, that's how you're describing it to me, because I use SharePlay a lot on PlayStation.
Yeah, so they're not like modifying the game. They're not adding. I don't think they're adding like an extra like thing in the menu or anything for like online multiplayer that is like a matchmaking. I think you have to like actually tell friends like, hey, add me and like invite me to like an online session and Switch Online.
But in theory, you could do the same thing with the control mapping. You just kind of do it outside of the game itself. I don't see why that would be such a crazy thing to. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You know about this realm better than I do, but I would think that you could potentially say, okay, outside of the game, we're going to tell it that when we're playing the game, this button means this.
You could, yeah. I mean, there's ways that you can remap controls. I mean, a lot of developers nowadays let you remap controls
and that's why I would like to see them do that in these Nintendo 64 games. I would think that shouldn't be that crazy a thing. Hopefully, they decide to do something like that.
I think that they're just trying to deliver the most loyal version possible.
Sure, I get it.
And those, but yeah,
I am super hyped about that. That was easily the GoldenEye announcement. I couldn't even figure out which one I cared more about, but when I figured out I could play with my friends when they're not in the room with me, that was like the tipping point.
Did you see something else that was coming to Xbox?
No.
Deathloop.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Finally coming to Xbox. Let me see when that is. But that was a game that you love.
I did love. And I believe it's actually coming to one of the tiers, I think PlayStation Plus Premium as well very soon, like maybe even this week.
You know what? It's coming to Xbox. It is coming to Xbox this damn day. September 20th, when this episode goes live.
And I think that might be the same thing with PlayStation Premium as well. So, whichever console you have, I think you actually might be able to, as long as you have the subscription service, of course, I think you do have access to that game.
I was very happy.
Heavy recommend.
Yeah, it's a very good game. It's one of the better games from last year. Was that last year? That was last year.
It was last year. You know how we did, we did the episode where we drafted games from each decade, that kind of thing. And I didn't have too many games that I would have drafted from this particular decade just because I haven't played as many of them.
Yeah.
I think this is one that I would have drafted potentially as my second game.
So I think that I made this call. September 14th, 2021 was when it came to PC and PlayStation. I believe I said, watch, a year from now, there's going to be a year exclusivity. It'll be on PlayStation. And then because Xbox now owns Bethesda, I bet it'll have a year exclusivity and then it'll come to Xbox. We are within a week of it being a year.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So there we go. It was perfect. Yeah. Forecasted.
There you go.
All right. So I think that's all the gaming we need. I mean, there was also the GTA 6 leaks.
Yeah, I don't know much about this. Like, I understand that a lot of videos leaked from GTA 6. And
it sounds like it was more than that. And I don't want to, talk too much about it just because, one, I didn't watch any of the stuff.
Okay, yeah.
but 2, it's also a freaking mess. Like, videos were leaking of like unfinished stuff, which is causing a lot of people to be like, "This looks like garbage." It's like, yeah, because it's not finished.
Yeah, that's the
like,
shame.
I bet that a lot of like videos and movies and music that you'd hear, like, have you ever listened to like a demo of like one of your favorite songs? It sometimes sounds like trash. That's because it wasn't finished.
Right. They didn't get to master it or anything like that. Yeah.
So
that's unfortunate. The one thing that I took away from this, and someone pointed this out, I forget who it was, and maybe it was even Jason Schreier, over for where's he at now? Bloomberg.
Yeah.
Bloomberg now. I want to say he pointed this out, and it really kind of made me feel bad to hear that. Is that what something like this might do? Is it might force developers all over the place, not even necessarily just Rockstar, to limit the amount of work from home that they get to do if they ever find that it's related to something like that. I mean, that would be just a real shame if this leak actually impacted people's lives in a way beyond, oh, this game doesn't look good. It's like, man, when they have to start going back to different work situations and stuff, man, that's really rough. So I hope that doesn't play out.
It sucks because
Jason knows a lot about that world, so it sucks to hear from him.
Well, it's because it was done through Slack. From what I understand, an employee of Rockstar was phished by somebody, and then the person used that information to get into the Slack of Rockstar, and then he downloaded source code and videos that were shared over Slack. So somebody also sold, from what I understand, the source code of GTA 5, which, if that gets out on the market, it could shut down GTA 5 for good.
Interesting.
Because somebody could just it would just make it so that anybody could just go online and hack their way through whatever, because they have the source code that opens up the door for hackers and modders to just have free reign, basically. So,
and that would kill the online element of it, sure.
Which sucks, because I mean, that's a game that so many people still play. I mean, it's an old game. That's a game that came out on Xbox 360 and PS3.
Yeah, Xbox 360.
I mean, I just saw that it turned 9 years old like 2 days ago, and then the next day it was hacked.
Yeah.
So it's because I remember I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, and I was working a job that I was not too fond of. And I remember GTA 5 came out, and I was like so excited. I didn't go to like a midnight release, but I was like, all right, well, on the way, I'm definitely playing it tonight when I get home. But on the way to work, I'm going to swing by Target, and I got a late start. So I was like 20 minutes late strolling into work.
I saw that tweet from you. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, happy 9-year anniversary to the day I was 20 minutes late to work.
Yeah.
Because I swung by Target to pick up my copy of GTA 5.
Yeah, but that's the thing that when I hear about the repercussions of this leak, that's what makes me really disappointed to hear, is that it could affect the developers' lives, the individual people who work on these games in a negative way, and that makes me really sad and unfortunate, because not everybody thinks about that. They just think, oh yeah, let's get this source code, or let's get these videos and things. It's like, man, it's deeper than that. You're affecting people's lives, dude. And a lot of people just don't think like that.
It's a bad situation.
It's super bad.
Scott, let's jump over to the MMA side of the fence here. I know we have
some things to talk about.
One thing we want to talk about the most, but I say let's recap the action that happened this weekend first.
Yeah, we can do it quick. There's not too much that I think we come away with. But yeah, so on Saturday night, of course, they returned to the Apex, where they're going to be having a lot more shows the rest of the way. They've been traveling around a little more for their fight nights, but now I think they're largely going to be based out of Las Vegas again for the remainder of the year.
There's a couple more shows, right?
Nolan King from MMA Junkie had put out that I guess a bunch of dates had been approved. I forget how many, but it seems like the bulk of the fight nights the remainder of the year are going to be at the Apex. So this was the first of many to come.
They really took advantage of hey, we can't do arena shows anymore. Let's just do this Apex thing. And then they're like, oh, we kind of like this, having all this control over our own facility and everything. I wish that we were doing the traveling road show again. I know that I'm sure that is less economical.
They will get back to doing that more, but I think they're going to be a little more selective about when they do it, especially in the United States. I think they still want to travel. I think they like the idea of getting international cards in and growing the sport over there.
I miss that so much.
They don't have to grow it here anymore, so it's not necessarily about that. I do hope they get back to it a little more. I want a fight card in Jersey. We haven't had Jersey in a while. Someone had posted, I want to say it was actually Lawrence Tynes, the former kicker. Do you remember Lawrence Tynes?
Mm-mm.
So Lawrence Tynes, he does a podcast, a Giants podcast with New York Post, with my outlet. And he is also a big fight fan. he tweets about the fights, and it's not just like the big weekends. He's tweeting about prelims and everything like that. He's a fight fan. Probably loves people who kick, eh?
Hey, he's a big Edson Barbosa fan.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe a Jose Aldo fan. But
never heard of him.
Yeah. But we'll talk about him a little later, maybe. But yeah, he pointed out like, hey, wouldn't it be really great? He was watching the U.S. Open tennis. Wouldn't it be great for them to have a UFC event at the at like Arthur Ashe Stadium at the Billie Jean King Tennis Center where they do the U.S. Open tennis in Queens? And I was like, man, that actually makes a lot of sense because they do. They don't want to do outdoor shows, but there's a retractable roof on Ashe. So they could do a show there. They could do an indoor show there. I would love to see them do one there. I think that'd be fun.
I think it would be. And it'd be cool to see them take it to an unconventional arena like that,
Right.
Like, I think that would be, it would be awesome. I know people are talking about like, all right, well, maybe for Leon Kamaru, we go to Wembley. And it's like the third fight between them.
They don't like giant stadiums is the problem.
But like it would be
not
so
giant
cool.
Stadium. That doesn't exist anymore.
It would be so cool if they could figure that out. But yeah, there's so many variables on an outdoor open air show that like I can't imagine them doing anything. But yeah, the retractable roof, that's the best case scenario. I mean, I maybe they build some sort of like giant canopy that goes over top the octagon itself if they did like an outdoor show itself.
I feel like it's just there's too many complications with it. Like, what if like a bird flies in, right?
Well, I mean, hopefully it stays away.
Things. I think if they do it indoor, and that's why again, Ashe actually makes a lot of sense, and also it's literally built upon the idea you're just watching like this one group in the middle as opposed to like a big court or a big field or something like that. It's a much more intimate, I think, way to watch it. It almost seems like it would be made for fight sports. So yeah, like once that kind of bug was playing in my head, like I'm very curious about that. I think I might have to if I ever get the chance to ask Dana White, like maybe when they come to town in November, when they go to the Madison Square Garden show, I might ask him like, have you guys ever thought about coming to some of the other venues in New York, like potentially Arthur Ashe Stadium?
Yeah,
I'd love to hear what he has to say.
I would love to hear what he has to say too.
Yeah, he'll probably just be like, we'll
look into that.
Talks about that. We'll talk about it. Yeah, and
then anything's possible.
But you know what? Exactly. You got to ask though, right? You don't know until you ask.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Is like you'll ask people questions that you're like, all right, they're probably going to give me like just empty platitudes here.
Sure.
But every once in a while, you get a little nugget. They're like, yeah, we're doing that next year. You never know.
That's how I was able to find out actually from Dana himself. The information about the I forget what they call them exactly, but it's essentially the locker room bonuses, right? Like, you always hear about that. Because I asked him, it was last February. I was on a phone interview with him, and I asked him at the end. It was kind of like just while I have you, I'm going to try this one question at the end. And I asked about like why they haven't done anything about like raising the 50K bonus. Why has that not like kind of increased over the years? As obviously they've gone on. 50K doesn't go as far as it used to. No. And they're also making more money now, so in theory they could do more. But they've stuck with 50K, and he went another direction. Like he dodged the question, but he ended up giving me all this information, like from the UFC about figures that they've given out in terms of like number in a year of those essentially locker room bonuses. He said the ranges and everything. I was like, wow, this is not what I wanted, but this is a happy accident. So I was able to put that out there, and now we have that. Now, granted, you want to just take the UFC at their word with that one. That's what you're doing, right? You're taking the UFC at their word. You can't check that information. But I will say they gave me a number at first that ended up being much larger than it actually was, and they made sure to contact me and correct themselves. It was their error, it wasn't. I didn't misreport anything, but it was their error, and they wanted to say no, it's actually this number, and it was a lower figure. So I don't. I'm inclined to think that these numbers are legit.
They probably are, and they probably can't say that it was such a huge number because they might get in trouble for not reporting certain numbers.
Well, I mean, I guess they're also part of Endeavor and all this kind of thing. It's a different kind of situation, right? Than if they were just by themselves. You just never know because we see certain numbers get reported about certain fight promotions, like one where they're just like, oh yeah, 10 billion people in the world watch us. It's like, yeah. There's only 7 billion people on the planet, aren't there? Or 8, whatever.
Hey, well, now they're on Amazon. They can claim every single Amazon Prime subscriber.
Yeah, but also the ones that live on the moon.
Yes,
Don't forget
correct.
about them. Yeah.
Which it's one person. If you ever watched Umbrella Academy,
Yeah. Okay. I have not, but I believe you.
it's a very good show. But UFC Fight Night.
Yeah. Well, let's get back. We're off on a
Sandhagen versus
tangent
Song.
here.
I saw precisely 0 seconds of this fight night.
And that's a shame because this was actually there were some fun fights on here.
I had
and a whole lot of blood.
I had plans all Saturday, unfortunately, which I mean, I had a good time, but at the same time, it was
plans stink.
Yeah, we had a former coworker was back in town, so we all went and got some wings, we got some beers, then we went over and had a couple drinks at a bar, and it was I expected to be back by 9:00 and maybe catch the main event. No, we were out until 11:30, which is late for an old man like me.
Yeah, I'm up super late, so I don't know what that makes me. Because I'm old. I'm actually a little older than you, I think. But no, Sandhagen and Song. What I can tell you is this fight was definitely worth watching.
I meant to.
I would say it probably roughly met my expectation. I think I gave it a 4 in terms of how interested I was in how it went. And I think it delivered largely on that. It ended. I don't know if you know the result, but it ended by a between rounds before the 5th round doctor stoppage because of a very bad cut over Song's eye. And this was a really bad cut. It was opened up from an up elbow, a standing up elbow from distance from Corey Sandhagen, and it just opened this massive cut above his eyebrow, and it was leaking heavily for let's say the majority of the fight. It was probably 2.5 rounds out of the 4 that ended up playing out, and they let the fight go a long time. Actually, after round 3 in particular, I was like, maybe they could stop this, but the doctor kept saying just keep an eye on it, give more or less indicating there's a short leash on here, right? If it gets worse, it's probably going to get stopped. But the fight was good. I mean, Song looked really good even in defeat. Corey Sandhagen looked good. He was showing off some different elements to his game. He's obviously been working to round out his game. He's working with Ryan Hall, training out in Virginia, because he's a Colorado guy. Corey Sandhagen is from Aurora, Colorado. Yeah. And he went out to Virginia, did a little bit of training there. He's really trying to. When I talked to him last week, I asked him, you had a big year, but a weird year last year, right? He fought for the title. He didn't win. The interim title, but it was a legitimate title fight, right? He lost that to Peter Yan. Before that, he had lost a very contentious split decision to TJ Dillashaw. A lot of people thought he won.
Now, let me ask you, did you think he won that one? Because I know that a lot of people think he did. I kind of thought he did too, but you're Mr. Judging criteria.
Right. I will tell you that I think you can make a better case for him to win the fight, but I can understand why you can get a TJ Dillashaw 3 rounds out of that one. I think the better choice would be that. That's the tricky thing about judging is it's so inexact in the way the phrasing of the criteria is you can actually essentially make a case for both men or women in some occasions. So
it is so wild to me that Corey Sandhagen, a guy that I think a lot of us agree is one of the most talented fighters in that division. Mm-hmm. He's just an absolute killer. He's 3-3 in the past 6.
Yeah,
which is so wild to think about. But his his
losses are to actual people who have won or would go on to win the bantamweight championship.
Yeah, they are all champions at some point in their career. Yeah, Jan, Dillashaw, and Sterling are his only 3 losses in the UFC. He lost to Jamal Emmers way back in the LFA.
And of course, he started last year with that massive flying knee knockout of Frankie Edgar, which it kind of started to kind of create the rapid decline in Frankie Edgar, I think.
Rest in peace, buddy. That was
he's still alive. Don't worry.
He was dead in that moment.
in that moment, yeah, he was practically that. But so I asked him, last year was kind of you had a lot going on last year. What does 2021 mean to you? And he said it more or less that he's not there yet. He's not where he needs to be yet. It just taught him he has more to do, right? And he's such a committed to this sport and getting himself better in the process of getting himself better that I feel like he's someone who he's just so determined. And he's only 29, or he might have turned 30 this year. He's not old whatsoever. He's not even long in the tooth for the sport. I think he's got a few years ahead of him where he could really get back and win that championship belt. Yeah, this was a good performance for him against Song in a good fight. Song's another guy. He's only 24, be 25 later this year. He's someone I think could be a potential champion one day. He's also not just there yet,
Yeah, Song has potential. I mean, it's just so hard to say anybody is like, oh, they're absolutely going to fight for a belt in the bantamweight division because it's so stacked. Like, it goes back to what I was saying about Sandhagen, where like it doesn't matter how good you are if you're in the bantamweight division in the UFC. You could easily lose half of your fights because everybody in that division, especially near the top,
as we're talking about with Sandhagen.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah,
like it's just like you know. I could see a scenario where Song Yudong goes on a 3-fight losing streak because he's fighting murderers. Like say they give him Marab next. It's like, all right, well, that's a tough fight for anybody.
Sure.
And it's like,
I don't think they would do that. Like just knowing the way the UFC tends to do matchmaking, they're not usually going to give someone off a loss going against someone who's like rising off a win.
Oh, I agree. I'm just thinking of like somebody who would make sense. Like it's just like, yeah, like, all right, well, here's your consolation prize. You lost your last fight. Now you get to fight another murderer because you're just in that division.
There's just no choice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The one thing there's two things that play in Song's favor. One, he is young. Yeah. Even though he's still very experienced, he's been in the UFC a while, but he's still a young guy. But number two, the fact that he represents China, he's from China, and UFC tends to want to try and break into that market however they possibly can. I think they are desperate to have stars created there. I think he will earn his keep. I don't think he's going to be gifted anything. But let's say push comes to shove and he's in the title market against someone else, I think he'll have an easier time at getting that nod over somebody else just because of the marketability they have with that market that they're trying to break into.
For sure. I think that, Song, both of these guys could have extremely bright futures. I think
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a rematch of this one at all.
At some point in the
maybe
future,
for a belt.
It's entirely possible. Both of them get on hot streaks. And I mean, and let's not kid ourselves. Like Sandhagen, I think could beat any one of those 3 fighters that he lost to. Like
I do too.
He is that good.
Yeah.
And Song Yudong, who has he lost? Let me bring up his Tapology page here.
Obviously, he lost this one. He lost. Actually, I think he might have a win over Marlon Cheeto Vera. I think that was like Cheeto's like most recent loss. But
he has a win over Vera.
That was a close unanimous. I think it was unanimous, but it was a very close fight. It's unanimous doesn't mean that it wasn't close. It just means 3 guys saw it the same way.
Yeah, I think that Yudong could go on a very good run here, get back to the title area. Like he wasn't like fighting for the belt here or anything, but like, he was fighting to be in the conversation.
He just doesn't lose a lot of shine here. I think he actually, because you didn't watch the fight. I'm telling you, if you watch the fight, and actually when you look at the scorecards, it was tied going into the 5th round. So the 5th round would have been a decider, although the momentum had been on Sandhagen's side. At this point, Song can barely see. I think he might have said he couldn't see anymore out of that eye. Obviously, he was doing distinctly different after that cut. But if he doesn't suffer that cut, does he continue to win that fight like he was in the first 2 rounds? Maybe. I don't know. That's why I think there's an unfinished business element to this fight, which also makes it much more likely that the two would fight again, given the chance that they might be in the same range, right?
For sure. Say there are 3 fights I'm going to watch on this card. I'm going to say I have time for 3 fights. Doesn't matter how long they are. Main event's one of them. What are the other 2 I should check out?
Okay, so I would definitely check out the co-main event, which is one of the ones that I think we were both very excited for, and that was Chidi Njokuani against Gregory Rodriguez. It goes about 6.5 minutes, counting the win for round 2. But there's an also grotesque cut that happens in this fight.
I saw some stills from that as well.
Yeah, horrifying stills. The stills are worse than watching the fight, but yeah, it's funny because the first, I want to say 45 seconds of this fight is very tepid. There's a lot of respect there. They're not ready to engage yet. And then all of a sudden, Njokuani lands a knee up the middle to Rodriguez. And then from there on, it's just craziness. So it's a really good fight. I would recommend that one very heavily. So that's where I would start. It's almost cheating to say just to throw in a couple of quick finishes, but Damon here you have to watch Damon Jackson against Pat Sabatini. It's less than a minute and a half, but you have to watch it, and you have to watch from the start to the end because they explain that Damon Jackson's brother died a week before the fight.
Jesus.
And he continued on. There's a lot of emotion here.
Well, yeah.
And it really is. It's a really amazing experience to watch that fight happen. So I would say watch those 3. And if you want one that's a little longer, Jillian Robertson and Maria Agapova. That one has some twists and turns in it.
I do like Jillian Robertson. I think she was on one of the Ultimate Fighter seasons, right?
Yeah, she was on the one where they debuted flyweight.
So was that Rousey and Tate? No.
No. This was more recent than that. This was the one where they were the coaches for that season. It was Justin Gaethje, I believe, right?
Oh, it was Gaethje and Alvarez?
Well, I believe it was Gaethje and Alvarez. I remember
they had to swim. That was their coach's challenge.
They
had to do a bunch of swimming, and
yes,
I think
it was. Gaethje ran out of steam.
Yeah, Alvarez won because Gaethje gassed out, which is funny to think about because he's I think he's shored up a lot of that by training at Elevation.
Sure. Well, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I would say that was definitely the season. It was Gaethje and Alvarez. I just checked.
That was a good season, honestly. I'm not a big tough fan, but
those are the fights I would watch. But honestly, solid card. I think it delivered pretty well. And I was kind of saying, I think we were kind of saying that there was not necessarily one or two fights that you were super pumped about underneath the main event, but on the whole, I kind of liked a lot of what was there. And I think that ended up bearing out. It was actually a really entertaining card. Yeah,
I really wanted to watch it. It's just had some stuff going on, and then yesterday, Sunday, when I was planning on catching up on it, I ended up spending 2 hours on a bike. I rode 23 miles.
I've never accidentally ended up on a bike.
Yeah, well, I woke up and my girlfriend was like, hey, let's go for a bike ride. And then she's more serious about cycling than I am, so I didn't realize we were going to be cycling for 2 hours, but we did. And
what did you think you were in for? How much time did you think?
I thought it was going to be an hour max.
Okay.
And I've done that before, pretty often. And I've never done 2 hours and then by that point, it's we should probably go grocery shopping. And then we made dinner and then we just got into the let's watch a movie type of situation. So the Sunday kind of escaped me by then.
I understand completely. But yeah, so that's it from the weekend though. There's actually no UFC coming this weekend. It's one of the very rare off weeks. We're not going to have too many of them until after Christmas. I think there might be only one more. They're usually off Thanksgiving weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I can almost guarantee they're not going to have a fight that weekend, which incidentally is actually the weekend when they are having the PFL championship event. It's the day after Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Which in my head, I was like, oh man, that's gotta be awful if you're cutting weight. But then I thought about it and I was like, wait a second. They can eat after they weigh in.
Yeah, but
then they can have
want to
feast.
Load up. Do you really
load up with you that? You can't load up on it because that's
exactly.
the thing. Sandhagen was telling, because I like to ask fighters now when I interview them for my Q&A series, I ask them what's your favorite post weigh in, post weight cut meal, and some people will be oh man, I'll go for this, whatever's around me. Corey was like, yeah, whatever the UFC gives me. I guess they give him a specific thing based on what he wants to eat. And but he says he doesn't like to fill up. He actually feels kind of sluggish until a couple hours before the fight, because now he's adding the food and everything like that. So it was kind of interesting to hear that perspective. So wow. Yeah, I imagine some fighters are probably going to be able to load up, and other ones maybe will regret doing so, and maybe they won't. Who knows? Everyone's different. It's fascinating the answers you get.
Yeah, I think that we have to talk about this Bellator card.
We can talk a little bit about it, sure.
Just run down a little bit, and then we're going to close out on the big news of the week.
I think it's the biggest news of the weekend. Yeah, I think we're bearing the lead here, but it's a good closer. Bellator, they're going to be in action on Friday. Bellator 285 in Ireland. They do a really good. They get a good turnout there for these cards, and they're headlining it with Peter Queally, one of their guys, going against Benson Henderson, who, of course, one of the finest 155-pound fighters that we've had in this sport, right? Still a young sport. He's not someone you necessarily put in GOAT conversation, but he had a really, really excellent career, and he's still going.
Yeah,
and this would be a fun fight. I actually kind of like this as a Bellator headliner.
Yeah, I mean it should be a good fight. It's I'm not super familiar with Queally just because I haven't watched a ton of Bellator.
Sure.
But I hear his name thrown around a lot as a really good fighter, and I don't know if this is going to be on Paramount Plus yet or what.
Right, because they're going to be merging Showtime Anytime into, or Showtime's whatever their streaming platform is, into Paramount Plus. So you'll be able to access, to a greater degree, Bellator events if you have a Paramount Plus subscription. So I don't think it's there yet, though, is it?
According to Variety.com, which I think is pretty reliable,
Sure.
Available starting August 31st, the new Paramount Plus with Showtime bundle experience lets subscribers upgrade their Paramount Plus subscription to include Showtime.
Oh, so you'd have to upgrade it, is what we're saying.
I have no idea. It says it all says there's a Paramount Plus with Showtime bundle on August 31st. So I don't know if that. If you can have the bundle now, and then when October 2nd rolls around, they're both folded into the same app.
I see. Okay, yeah. So it's not actually in yet unless you have that bundle, correct?
It sounds like a freaking mess.
Well, in a couple of weeks, it won't matter, right?
I mean,
right now, it's a little bit more complicated.
At least Paramount Plus didn't crap out on me when I was watching some NFL yesterday because I missed that amazing Chiefs playoff game that everybody was losing their minds about last year because Paramount Plus wouldn't sustain a live stream.
I've had issues with Paramount Plus before. I've tried to watch Combate Global, one of the I guess they cater to the Latin American market, especially Spanish speaking world. Really, it's also Spain and everything like that. That's where they're really trying to target. They're on Paramount Plus, and I've had trouble getting a good stream with them as well. So I hope Paramount Plus can maybe iron out some of the things, or maybe already has, but I don't watch a lot of live TV through there.
It's good old Campbell McLaren's organization. Yes,
it is. Campbell's a character.
It was funny. He follows me on Twitter. I follow him on Twitter, and I enjoy his adventures, right? Because he always shares lots of photos, oftentimes with the front facing camera activated. And he tweeted out "Hey, I'm looking for a commentator for Combate."
Yeah,
and people obviously 100 people were going to respond that had no qualifications whatsoever. And he tweeted after that I'm getting a lot of people responding to this that have no idea about Combate. That's weird. And I'm like, of course you are. It's Twitter.
Well, Campbell's a little older.
Yeah, it's just hilarious that he almost took those tweets oh yeah, I'll do commentary for you as job applications.
I think he's just trying to create engagement. I think he does have a good idea of that. The best thing that Campbell McLaren has going for him is he is a carnival barker in every sense of the word, and that can be a real asset in fight sport.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely he plays it up very well. He plays to his strengths very well in that sense. But real quick for Bellator. So obviously that's the headliner, but the co-main event should be a fun one too. I think it has potential to be a total dud, but also I think it could be fantastic, and that's Yoel Romero against Melvin Manhoef.
But that's
Have you watched Melvin Manhoef, by the way? Everyone knows Yoel, but
Yoel Romero, every single fight has the potential to be unbelievable or a complete bore.
Right.
That's his trademark.
These two guys have just so much power. That's really what they're known for, is the power, right? If they don't engage, if it ends up being a counter-striking thing, we're going to get something in the vein of Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero, and it will be a really terrible fight for 3 rounds only. But I'm inclined to think that we're going to get a spectacular knockout one way or the other. I do think that that's going to happen. This is my gut feeling. I don't know who's going to do it. I really don't. I mean, the track record would indicate it's probably Manhoef that would go down, just because he has taken a lot more damage over a longer career, even though they're both in their mid-40s. This is kind of like that, and people like to poke fun at Bellator for signing all the the old folks of the fighting world. This is certainly one that doesn't help them, but Yoel Romero, sorry, you have to admit this guy is still a top fighter. He just is.
He's very fun. He's a good draw, and you just had a conversation with him. I'm sure you got some nuggets of wisdom from him.
Yeah. I mean, he was talking a little bit about how it actually came up with the idea that Jake Paul had approached him about potentially fighting. This was a year or something ago. This was not revelatory. It had already been out there, but he was talking a little bit about that. And I asked him about how is it he's always able to get these 3rd round finishes, right? Because his last, I believe it's 7 finishes that he's gotten in fights. So not just his last 7 fights, but the last 7 wins that he's gotten that were a finish.
Mm-hmm.
All of them came in the 3rd round, which is just ludicrous.
Also, I do want to point out, I'm looking at his Tapology page right now. Yoel Romero and Chris Barnett grappled?
I did not know that, but that's wild.
It looks like Yoel won in round 1 via Kimura.
Well, I would expect he'd be able to win. He's a former Olympic wrestler.
Yeah, but it's just that's unbelievable. That Yoel Romero and Chris Barnett, two of the best characters in the sport today.
But anyway, so I wanted to finish this.
Sorry.
But Yoel when I asked him about how he gets these finishes, he's like, and this kind of plays into what you're saying about him being a character. He's like, well, I'm just kind of blessed by God. But he was kind of saying like he was like God, like he was kind of just joking about that kind of thing. But he's like, no, I'm just kidding, of course. But
yeah,
I like this card anyway, the Bellator card. So if you do have access to it, I think it's a reasonably solid fight card.
The big question for me is Paulo Costa Yoel Romero showing up? Is Robert Whittaker Yoel Romero showing up? Or is Israel Adesanya Yoel Romero showing up?
But they're the same guy. It really just comes down to how you engage with him. That's the thing. If you don't give him anything, he's not really one to go for it. He's a counter striker. He's just a counter striker. And those type of guys, Anderson Silva was the same way. If you weren't going to engage with him, sometimes he had a real terrible fight. That's just the way it goes. Adesanya is the same way. He doesn't necessarily look to make it happen. He wants you to give it to him a little bit. So, yeah, we'll see. I think Manhuff is the type of guy that could give him something, but, man, we'll see. We'll see.
Do you think that do you think Yoel Romero's biggest, it's a shame that never happened fight was Michael Bisping? Because they had some heat going for a long time.
Because I think, one, there was heat there. Two, I think he actually would have beaten Michael Bisping. I tend to think that.
And Yoel would have been champion if it was timed right.
Yoel would have been. I think Yoel is somebody who kind of missed out on being champ. And it's not just because of how you scored, especially the second fight against Robert Whittaker. Although I think he missed weight for that one, right? So it wouldn't have mattered. But it wouldn't have mattered, right? You got to hit the weight, right? This was at 205, so weight shouldn't be as big of an issue. Manhuff's fought mostly at middleweight too, so they're both kind of coming up to more comfortable weights, which is nice. I like to see that. I don't want guys killing themselves to make weight.
But if I can figure out some way that I can watch this stupid fight card, I want to watch the main card here because Mads Burnell versus Pedro Carvalho should be a good fight. Mm-hmm. Romero, Manhoff, and Henderson Queally. I'd watch all three of those fights.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm done with Belko, so I want to talk about the big thing, right? I want to move on to this biggest thing. So we're going to wrap up here soon, and I don't want to just squeeze it in because we have to give one of the greatest fighters, and legitimately one of the greatest fighters of all time, not someone we're just trying to be kind to and pay some compliments. Jose Aldo is a legitimate great, a GOAT level fighter in mixed martial arts, someone that I think we're going to be talking about for generations and not just now. I mean,
yeah,
he is now retired. Apparently, reportedly has retired from the sport.
He's top 7 at absolute worst, I think, of all time.
I think he's in the 5. I think
I would put him in 5 as well. But I'm saying at worst, top 7.
See, for me, people like to do the Mount Rushmores, right? And I always have 5, and I'm going to leave somebody out when I do it. So here's my 5. It's Jose Aldo, and this is not in order, but Jose Aldo, John Jones, Anderson Silva, GSP, and Mighty Mouse Johnson.
Yeah,
that's my 5. I can't give. I would put GSP at number 1, and then after that, it's like, okay, where do you put everybody?
Yeah, it's really hard to come up with the greatest of all time, especially when there's so many different factors. But Jose Aldo really checks all those boxes, right? He has the longevity, which is something that
he was champion for 6 years in a row.
The longevity,
this doesn't happen.
The dominance.
Yeah,
he has fought the who's who of his divisions, not just the division.
He went down. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
he made a solid run at a second shot at the title. I didn't think he necessarily earned that first bantamweight shot, but I think the second one he was on his way there.
He should have gotten a title shot instead of fighting Merab.
Maybe, but also he probably shouldn't have gotten the title shot when he got the title shot the first time.
Correct, so I agree.
It's it's kind of like it almost balanced out, right?
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen him versus Aljo, though.
I would have loved to see him against Dominic Cruz. We never got that fight. That would have been amazing. Yeah. That was going to be the WEC Bowl. It's never going to happen now. I'm disappointed.
They should have done that and then have I don't know what Dominic's current status is, but that would have been a cool thing for them to both go out on that fight.
What if they did that fight because there's supposedly there's going to be a card in Rio de Janeiro in January, and of course he's the king of Rio, right? If he had only been able to stick around till that, and maybe they did Aldo versus Cruz in Rio, That would be amazing. That would just be an amazing way. But I think it doesn't sound like we're going to get that.
Yeah, I mean,
to be fair, Aldo did tweet over the weekend as this news was happening. The only thing he tweeted was that he became a father again.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which was congratulations to Jose Aldo.
I wonder if that was like kind of all right. Yeah,
and the Aldo family.
This is kind of like me going out on like enjoying, like retiring from this and then going into life. I'm assuming he has other kids, right?
I do not believe he's a first-time father. I believe he has several children.
But like this is kind of like another chapter of his life. He's no longer a fighter. Sure. He's going to focus 100% on being a father, I would imagine. Maybe some other side businesses. I don't know what else he has in the cooker.
Maybe he'll get the chance to compete in some other combat sports. Depends what his contractual obligations are to the UFC.
Well, it sounds like the UFC
he's talked
cut
about
him loose,
boxing for a long time. I think he would love to try boxing. He's too small to fight Jake Paul. That's not happening.
No, please don't. Please do not do that. I did have a joke tweet that I actually felt bad sending over the weekend when that news broke was 2023 PFL champion Jose Aldo.
Ooh, yeah. Maybe you should have stuck to cycling, sir.
Because, we speaking of it, the guy he earned, quote, the bantamweight title shot against was Marlon Moraes, who is now ended PFL, a very, very brief retirement to return to PFL.
It's not the shortest, though.
The shortest.
Chris Curtis.
He
retired.
I forgot about that.
At PFL, and then he fought again that night.
Yeah, he retired,
and now he's in the UFC. So
that's so funny. But yeah,
but Jose Aldo, like the question I would have for you is, do you think this is the right time for him?
I would have loved to. He had one fight left on his contract. We're going to Rio de Janeiro in January. I would have loved that one more fight against Dominic Cruz.
Yeah.
However, it's the situation of like, every fighter has to make the decision for themselves. If you're not wholeheartedly in this game, that's when it gets really dangerous, I feel. And if he's really not feeling one more fight, which, that would be the perfect thing, right? All right, I'm going to go out. I'm going to have one more fight in front of my hometown. And it's going to be against another legend like Dominic Cruz or maybe even like Frankie Edgar. Who knows? Like just some sort of matchup
and
against
they've already had a couple.
somebody, yeah, but like somebody in that age bracket, right? I don't want him to get fed to some other big up and coming youngster who is like just tearing through people.
And I don't want to see mad at Merab Dvalishvili for winning the fight the way he did. Poor Merab.
I don't want to see Jose Aldo fight Corey Sandhagen, right? I don't want to see that.
No, that doesn't need to happen.
But I would love to see him fight Dominic Cruz. Like that's the one, like the WEC Legends Tour. Make it happen.
Here's my read on the situation is, yes, it would have been wonderful if he got a fight in Rio, two, especially if it was against Dominic Cruz. But I think for him, and this is my interpretation of it, maybe he feels differently, but I bet you I'm kind of in the neighborhood here. He can't get to the championship anymore. We know now he is not going to get to the championship anymore. This was his run. It got ended by Merab. It is over. He probably doesn't see any need to continue on anymore because the risk is, why am I doing it? Am I doing it because I love it or because of money or what? Because I'm not going to chase a championship anymore. That's over. Is it worth risking my body anymore if I can't get the glory of being a champion? And I have a feeling he saw that and said, all right, I'm done. I don't need this anymore. I'm okay. So that's my read on it. And if that's the case, then I have to give all the credit in the world to him for making a really smart decision and not just continuing on because he couldn't let go or something like that. So all the power to him. I think that's a strength move. I hope the retirement sticks too, unless he's coming back for Dominic Cruz, because I don't think Dominic Cruz is going to be the type of fighter that will inflict a lot of unnecessary punishment onto Jose Aldo. Like we had in that 5th round against Peter Yan. That was unnecessary punishment that he got, and I did not like that.
It would be one of those situations like when Nate Diaz was fighting Tony Ferguson all of a sudden, where it's like, oh, this is much better. We don't fear for Nate's safety in this fight. Right. But it's going to be one of those things like, oh man, we've been wanting to see these guys fight for so long. It would be a situation like that if they announced it, where it's like, okay, this is a substantially better situation. And all the reports I'm seeing actually right now are that the UFC has released him from his contract.
That is what they're saying. Yeah. I mean, reports are what they are. If that's the case, then he's open to do whatever he wants. Maybe he can, if he's out of a contract, he can go do what he wants. Maybe he will go box. Who knows?
But it's unfortunate that we never did get to see Aldo Cruz because just two legends of the sport, same age bracket, same
division now.
Division now. it's almost too perfect of a retirement fight for Aldo. And, maybe it would be a retirement fight for Cruz. I don't know what his mindset is after getting brutally finished by Cheeto.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he's like, oh, I had this comfy commentary gig. Maybe I would just do one more and have a dance partner like Jose Aldo would have been perfect. I wish we could have gotten that. But again, if you're not fully in on this sport, that's when it gets really dangerous. And I think that, I'm happy for Jose Aldo on retirement. Congratulations on an incredible career. One of the greatest careers we will ever see in this sport.
Amen.
And
hard to echo, hard to replicate what he done.
Yeah. And it's just like, how do you top that? And it's, we have the likes of Volkanovski and Holloway dominating the featherweight division now, but it's always going to be the specter of Jose Aldo when you talk about the greatest to ever do it in that division or just in the sport in general. So I'm happy for him, and I wish him the best after his career.
Absolutely. And that's it though. We packed a lot into this show. We're going to be wrapping up here. If you liked it, make sure you subscribe if you don't already. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening. Make sure other people know where they can find us. And while you're at it, would you kindly follow our social handles at Brian P. Shea and at Scott_Fontana on Twitter and Instagram.
And you can always reach us in a more official capacity with questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear about. Hit us up at groundandpwnedpod@gmail.com or at groundandpwned on Twitter. Until next time, enjoy the fights, enjoy the games, and we will talk to you next week.